The presidential election of 1888 was a contentious one, and like most issues still facing our nation today, best dealt with in song form. Lucky for us, one family decided to come together in support not of a political ideology, but of music itself, further blurring the boundaries of party loyalty, love, and elder abuse. Join us as we take a look at the one and only, genuine, original family band. Hey everybody, welcome back. We have another episode of the Buena Vista Boys, and this is episode 5. There's a lot of things that happened in this episode that sort of converged and made it simultaneously the perfect episode to drop right now and the most uncomfortable viewing experience I could ever possibly have. It's a movie about politics. It's a Disney political movie that pits Republican against Democrat with all too many parallels to what we're still going through today.
Yeah, and what I found the most interesting is that they went so hard into politics in an era that doesn't matter to us anymore. It's 1888. I have no stake in this. Yes, this movie takes place in 1888. It's, first of all, I guess we should get through the opening. It's the genuine original, the one and only genuine original family band. That's the name of this movie. When did it come out, Matt? Oh, this movie came out in 1968.
Okay. So 1968, and we are releasing a movie from 1880, or based in 1888, about basically North and South Dakota splitting up to essentially destroy the country. And by that, I mean just vote Republican. I'm teasing. Just a fair warning, like, we did not pick this movie because it's election year or to hide any sort of political agenda or whatever. Like, it literally was just a mistake. I believe I was blaming Matt for it because this movie is not only a political movie, which politics, I'm tired of it, but it's a musical, which I can't do. I don't like musicals. I'm not a musical guy. Never have been. I tried in high school, and I can't do it.
See, and I am not going to take the blame for this one because I remember distinctly when you put forward your 5 and my 5, I would never, title alone, have wanted to watch this movie.
See, and that's why I picked it from the title alone, where it's like, this sounds weird. A family band. Okay, that sounds cool. Maybe like Partridge Family kind of thing. Where I guess I wanted something kind of light, and I thought it would be light and entertaining, and that's it. And you didn't have to think too hard about it. And, you know, kind of just going off of, because I figured the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes would be a little bit more on the negative side because it's just like a weird movie. And I thought, well, maybe we can come back. It's kind of a light one, but this is not a light movie. This is
and it's complicated to talk about. Like, I was hoping this would be more like a Music Man, right? That's a pretty straightforward, like, you know, Shyster comes to town, makes the town into a band. Okay, easy, no problem. There's a lot of funny stuff in there. But this is not that.
Oh, no. Well, yeah. So, you know, all in all, I think it's a good movie for the most part. There's a lot of cameos in it, a lot of people we can talk about, which is great. I have a lot of clips, so I can give you kind of the rundown, so you don't really have to see the movie if you don't want to.
Yeah.
I was watching it the first time and like, ooh, this is rough. And then I watch it a couple times to pull clips, and my daughter comes in, she goes, "You're just watching this again?" And I wasn't mad. I was like, yeah, I guess I am. But I'm kind of okay with it. A couple times, like my software didn't record the clip I was doing.
Sure.
So I had to watch the same scene like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So I could figure out computers. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not really, there's nothing offensive about it. The acting is amazing in this movie. And I mean it, like, underlined amazing. Like, everybody, the characters, the background actors, everybody is on point and in their roles. And I think that's really rare to see with a big, giant cast of extras. I think it's rare to see, but every one of them could have been center stage.
You'll get no quarrel from me on that. I noticed that when I was rewatching it, because I wanted to see some extra details. I didn't want to just watch it once and go, "Oh, this movie's bad." I wanted to watch at least the halfway point, which I think is really when the rubber hits the road. and get more details on it. And yeah, like kind of absorb more of what's going on. And my issue is that the movie's acting, you're right, is good. In general, the music is good. But my problem is why I find myself wondering, why would I ever come back to this movie about the Dakotas? Like, that's my problem. Like, Sound of Music, I get. That's gripping, right? The Music Man is interesting. It's got Buddy Hackett. It's very funny. But this movie, I don't see coming back to for any reason.
Yeah, all right. Well, look, on that intro, let's get into it. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Before we start, Matt, do you ever get embarrassed by proxy? You ever see something and get embarrassed for that person you see on TV or, whatever?
Absolutely.
That describes the feeling I had while watching just the intro of this movie. So it opens up, we have a whole family in a barn, and they're playing the intro song, and I'll play it here in a second. But these people live on a farm and are basically all what seems like classically trained. Not only on the brass and woodwinds and stuff that they're playing in this band, but on playing those as a march, which is very hard to do, and also dancing. These people are amazing dancers. The choreography is on point. Everything is great. All the notes are amazing. They're just going for it.
Play it loud. Play it proud.
For together here we stand.
The one and only genuine original family band. Come hear the hullabaloo of our tuba. Hear the tinkety-boom of our drum. Hear the tweedledee of our woodwind. Hear our plinkety-plink and banjo strum. And when the random attack...
That was Dad singing, the dad of the movie, and he...
Buddy Ebsen's going for it. He's got the shoulders moving.
It's so good. And you know what? Watching it now again, because I didn't pull audio, I pulled video because we do this live on Twitch. Because why not? Everyone's just into it, and I don't know. I'm kind of like I think I might be changing my mind on this movie as we watch it again for the millionth time.
Oh no, it's converting you slowly.
Might be my favorite new movie, man. Like I said, we open with the family practicing their very own theme song. Like the chorus of this is, "We're the one and only genuine original family band." So they have their own march, which is, crazy. And it's a huge family. There's like 7 kids, because what else are you doing? Like Missouri in 1800s, you know what I mean? You have mom and dad. And just this whole thing is just a massive, massive undertaking. They're moving around. They're strutting. They're box stepping. The older sister is doing these ballet high kicks. So she's got to be classically trained with that pointed toe of hers. Like, she's got to have some ballet background.
Yeah, I had to do barrel kicks one time for a play I was in. I was in South Pacific and at our civic theater. And I had to learn to do these barrel kicks. And those things are no joke. Like, what she was doing is even worse. I just had to learn to step, kick. And I had to do 3 of them in a row, and it sucked.
Yeah, so you can imagine.
I can't imagine what they're doing.
Grandpa is the conductor of this whole mess, and when it's all over, he wants to keep rehearsing, but the family has clearly had enough and sort of makes up a bunch of excuses to be anywhere else but with Grandpa playing music in the barn. And by the way, the barn is really nice. There's 2 levels to the barn, not just like an upstairs, downstairs, but there's like a floor, and then there's like steps up, and everything's put away. There's a little just kind of hay everywhere, but for the most part, it's a really clean barn. I would live in this barn.
Yeah, it's a fine barn. Like, you could convert that into a nice little 1800s apartment. Pretty easy.
So Grandpa says something about potentially going to St. Louis, and he's trying to guilt kids into practicing again, and it kind of works. Here's a little bit of that.
Done it again. You booped when you should have umpired.
I'm sorry, Grandpa.
Can you just go on without me? Mr. Hotchkiss just arrived with the mail.
Yeah, that's about enough for me, too. I promised I'd turn sod for Katie's flower bed.
Yes, I'll show you what I had in mind, dear.
My lip's tired.
Well, there you see, you need practice. Build it up, build it up.
And I sort of promised Hank Winters I'd come by this morning.
Oh. All right. All right. If nobody else wants to get the invite to St. Louis, I sure don't care.
I want to go, Grandpa, too.
Well, means nothing to me. riding on a train, staying in a hotel, eating in fancy restaurants, maybe even playing for the President of the United States.
All I said was my lip's tired.
Wait, come on, please.
Hey!
Alice got her letter from Joe Carter.
And it's just that Grandpa is proud of himself because he's bullied his entire family. And what else I noticed about this is there's a shot of this little girl. She's the only one that does not fit. She has black hair and her complexion is a little bit darker than everybody else. Everybody else is like a tow-headed little brat. And this other little girl's like got to be a neighbor girl or something like that. I mean, Leah, look at this. Look at these two women, or these two girls. It's wild, man.
Yeah, she's got like olive skin.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. She looks like she'd be Greek or Middle Eastern or something. And then you have Kurt Russell.
Like a Southern Italian shoe salesman came door to door.
Yeah, I got some brushes for your brushes. Okay.
Fuller brushman.
As we heard towards the end of that clip, the sister, whose name is Alice, had gotten a letter from a guy, Joe Carter, I believe his name is, and it seems like they've never met in person, which is some 1800 stuff that I just don't get. I don't know how they met or how they got in contact, but they're writing to each other. They're pen pals, and she's very excited that this letter has come from Joe. So much so that she goes off to sing a whole ass song about what it would be like to see this man for the first time. And I'm like lost at this point because I guess she's in a meadow next to a corral and she's belting out these tunes about a guy she hasn't even spoken to on the phone or in person. She hasn't met him. She doesn't even know what he sounds like. But apparently she's like, what's it gonna be like when we meet for the first time?
And it's I'm a special kind of gal. I don't know what the song was. I can't remember. But no, and so the whole time she's singing the song, I'm like not even paying attention to the song because I'm noticing that the corral has steps that go up it and steps that go back down it. And these like 3 horses come running over to her. And the whole time I'm like, why the hell do you have steps leading out of your corral? Like, how often do these horses get out? Because then I had to Google, do horses go up and down steps? And yes, they can. They can be trained to go up and down steps. Some wild cows have been known to like go down and up steep ravines. It's not a problem. They can get out if they want. If they're motivated, they could get out. And so the whole time I'm just like, why are you doing this? Like, why is there a step up and down into this horse corral? Like, do you like chasing them? I don't get the point of this.
Right? Yeah, it seems pretty odd, man. So after the song, we moved into the kitchen of the house and everybody is in their best clothes. There's a scramble to get ready because the man in the letter, whose name is Joe Carter, is coming to finally meet the family. Grandpa kind of negs Alice a little bit here. And I had to play some of it because it was just such an inappropriate thing to say to a young woman.
Grandpa is he's something else.
He's a menace.
Yeah.
How about this one? Oh, did you like it better than the green one?
Oh, yes, dear. It's just fine. I always did love that dress.
I didn't see nothing wrong with the white one you had on in the first place.
Oh, Grandpa, do you really like that one better than this one? I mean, do you think it looks better on me?
Honey, you'll have him bug-eyed and breathless no matter what dress you're wearing.
Well, I just don't want to see you get a heart broke, that's all. But anybody that twists the truth around the way he does in his newspaper, I sure wouldn't believe nothing he wrote in the letter.
Here he comes! Gary's turning at the gate!
God, dude, I can't believe that. Well, I just don't want to see you get your heart broken wearing that blue dress when you should be wearing the white dress. I love Grandpa, dude. He's the best.
He knows that he has about 4 more years left in him,
If that, yeah,
right?
for sure.
So he is just going for it. He doesn't care.
He's throwing darts at everybody.
Yeah.
And I can't remember when I was writing the notes if it was established or not, but Joe Carter runs a newspaper, and it's a Republican-leaning newspaper.
A Republican newspaper, yeah.
A Republican,
Absolutely.
yeah. So he's coming into town to check out the daughter, and clearly Grandpa is not a Republican. He's a Democrat. So as we move through the house, we're following Alice trying to get ready and whatever. we really get to see the wealth that this family has amassed. And I want you to think about like the entryway or the loading room of the haunted mansion, but like well lit and really, really well maintained. I mean, you got fancy, fancy wallpaper, super ornate wooden hearth, high ceilings, big chandeliers, which kind of sort of betrays that down-home folksy vibe that they were pulling off in that opening scene. People who live like this do not go play the clarinet in a barn. Sorry, they just don't, man. But it just the stark contrast between those two scenes, the barn and here, were very, very, very different. There's a knock at the door, and we're led to believe that this is the guy she's waiting for. It's the only option that we have, right? But after several pregnant pauses, we learn that the man who enters the house, who's a little bit older, and they're kind of like, oh, she's like, do you recognize me from your picture? I don't know that I would recognize you. And he's like, I don't really understand. Turns out he's the head of the Democratic committee, and he's there to see Grandpa about a campaign song that he wrote this man about for the Grover Cleveland campaign.
Yeah, sir, you are very underselling this scene because he comes in and there are about 15-second pauses between Alice and him talking because they have a misunderstanding. She thinks he's Joe. He's not Joe. And it was so awkward. Like, it made my teeth itch. I'm just like, is this written this way? Is this just poorly timed? Like, it was really awful.
What I didn't understand is, so Alice said like, oh, basically they exchanged pictures.
Yeah.
This man looks nothing like anybody that a teenage girl, what is she, maybe 20? I have no idea.
Yeah. 18
would marry. I mean, this guy has to be in his late 40s.
Yeah.
And she's still like being polite and, oh, well, gee, you look different. But, hey, and she's like carrying, instead of going, who are you? Are you Joe? Because I can't believe that you're Joe because you look nothing like anybody that I would be interested. Like,
exactly. And
it's hard to believe that anybody else would ever come and visit their house.
Like a human being, you would go, oh, Joe, I'm Alice. Finally, nice to meet you. That's how you would start a conversation, not come on in and just, hey, you look different from your picture. And then the fact that he was not interested at all in having the conversation of like finding out what the hell she's talking about. Like, that guy unnerved me.
I mean, I guess what I would do is answer the door and go, hello.
Yes.
Can I help you? And then figure it out.
Yeah. No, that guy was just so weird.
So if the man likes this Grover Cleveland song that Grandpa's about to play, the family will then be invited to St. Louis, which is what Grandpa was talking about in the last scene, to perform it at the Democratic convention. So the family gets excited. They lead this man out back into the barn. And they proceed to perform not a song, but it was like a full-blown skit.
Oh, yeah.
About how men of the time came through for the country, like Washington and Lincoln, and now Grover Cleveland. The whole thing is really long and weird and kind of just reinforces just how much free time this whole family has on their hands to create something like this. And there's a full painted banner that drops.
They have access to costumes.
Yeah, they work and live on a functioning farm. They do not have time for this, but apparently, I don't know, maybe they do.
Well, that's why they have like 9 kids, because many hands make light work, which means they have more time for banding. They have more time for band practice.
I guess. So after the presentation of the show, Grandpa pulls this man aside and wants to get his take on, how it went and when they should start going to St. Louis, because clearly it was great. And he's like, you know what? If he wins, maybe we can go to the inauguration when Cleveland gets inaugurated and play it for him. He'd love it.
We've quite a few bridges to cross before then. The one thing I will say about the song, though, it really gets to you. Makes you proud to be a Democrat, doesn't it?
Well, I guess it would if I was. He wasn't never too bright, even as a boy. And he growed up to be a goddamn Republican.
You could sing that the way you did, and still... Well, who'd sing your part if the rest of you came to St. Louis?
Oh, hold on now. Nobody's taking off and leaving me home, not as long as there's a place to go and a way to get there.
A Republican singing at a Democratic convention?
Well, it just didn't seem the kind of a song they'd appreciate at a Republican convention. Actually, to me, music stands above all this anyhow. You don't have to be a Southerner to sing the Yellow Rose of Texas or a sailor to dance a hornpipe.
You see, sir, well, Calvin isn't just a rock-bound Republican. Mostly he votes for the man.
So we learn a lot of things right now. There's a lot to unpack. Grandpa's a Democrat. The dad is a Republican. And so you kind of, I guess, assume that everybody else is a Republican in the family as well. But I love that line of like, he never did have too much sense. So the guy says he wants to bring the family band to St. Louis, and that's great. And that's a whole deal, the whole goal. The family goes nuts. The man exits the scene, and Dad leads the family in yet another song. This one is praising the man who invented music.
Who invented music? We'd like to shake his hand, 'cause music casts a spell on us that we can't understand. Must be some magician designed the magic plan. He changed his wand to a baton, and that's how it all began. When the rhythm pounds and the harmony sounds and the melody rolls around.
Presto chango!
We're 10 feet off the ground, and when the rhythm pounds and the harmony sounds and the melody rolls around. Right from the downbeat.
Kurt Russell with the old soft shoe there, man. He's doing a pretty good tap number. I was impressed with that. I was like, good job, Kurt.
His gangly body kind of just like wiggling all over.
Yeah. So I'm watching this scene and a couple things strike me. Number one is Kurt Russell doing a nice little tap number, and I think that's great. Number two, I'm starting to think this family likes music a bit too much.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it should be borderline illegal to like music this much.
I'm just wondering how much work they are getting done around. Like the barn is, you're right, a little too clean. Like they never use it.
There's some hay there, and that's kind of about it.
Yeah.
So right in the middle of the breakdown of this song, a handsome figure enters the barn, chin first, and it's Mr. Joe Carter, the man Alice was waiting for. And she's blowing her cheeks out on the slide trombone, and she spins around to face him and realizes probably how weird she looks. Shocked and embarrassed, she runs away, which is sure to only help the situation, right? That's the classic thing you should do first.
Well, she was caught having fun in 1888. Like, they'll stone a woman for that.
Yeah, showing her ankles a little bit. She takes off across the meadow, and Mr. Carter runs after her, begging her to stop and slow down and, whatever. Eventually, he catches up to her and tells her that he loved seeing how fun she is and that he was really nervous that their meeting would be all formal and weird. And she kind of falls for it, and she gives him these big doe eyes and, bats her eyelashes at him, and that's about it. We get a soft cross fade into the next scene, and we're out in front of the house with Dad talking to Joe Carter, and for some reason, Carter's trying to convince them to move to South Dakota. After all, they are about to be a state. And this, for me, this came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't understand this at all. It was like, imagine meeting your potential girlfriend or some girl you're talking to and then instantly hard selling their dad on moving the entire 7-person family to another state.
Yeah, I really thought this. I thought this was sort of setting up like a different kind of like a snake oil salesman kind of motif for him.
Yes,
that's really where I thought this was going to go. I thought this was going to get real dark, and he's like swindling of them out of their money, or they're going to get there, and it's going to be this weird bait and switch.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
That's where I thought it was going to go.
Here's a little bit of that.
But if you could just realize the opportunities there are in Southern Dakota. We're about to become a state,
Must be beautiful in the Black Hills. Trees, lakes, little streams.
Oh, I'm sure it's very nice. But we have a good life here. And a lot of wonderful friends.
Yeah, guess I'll have to go along with that, but I always keep thinking there might be someplace out west just a little bit better. We've been lucky every time we moved. A man hates to quit when he's winning.
No place ever going to be so wonderful that you couldn't dream up something better.
Oh, but you wouldn't say that, Mrs. Bauer, if you just seen the Black Hills. The air has a snap to it. It's the scent of the pines, and the sky so blue you almost can't believe it.
I know what would be fun. Why don't you and Papa come along to the meeting? Hear his lecture. Oh, and, Grandpa, you can come too if you'd like.
Well, I don't really know.
I'd be very flattered if you would come.
Have you got many people to move to Dakota?
Well, not just people, Mr. Bauer, but the right people. You see, the thing that first interested our state chairman, he found that you're almost 100% Republican through this whole area.
Oh, that's mostly what you're interested in, ain't it? Getting Republicans to move up there?
That's right, sir. You see, Mr. Bauer, this past year we've had almost a tidal wave of shiftless, irresponsible Democrats moving in. A bunch of shysters and quacks and usury-type moneylenders. And if we don't do something about it soon, they'll have us outnumbered.
Well, let me tell you something, young man. You're trumpeting a flat tune on a worn-out horn. Because you can't turn back a tidal wave, not by putting out a rabble-rousing ragtag newspaper. And not by speech-making to a bunch of poor, misguided Republicans. And furthermore...
That's enough, Grandpa. Now stop it.
Get him, Grandpa. Don't let him take that. Don't take any crap from this man.
God, look at that hateful gaze again.
So Mom's not having any of it. Dad always seems interested. He's got a little bit of the Rolling Stone in him, and he wants to see what's going on. But what was interesting is, I mean, you can see in the background of this movie, there's trees and ponds and beautiful meadows, and the house is gorgeous. And Dad's like, but I wonder if there's something better, you know, a place that has trees and a river. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
And crisp air.
I would love to live where you live. Come on.
Well, I like that. I like that mentality of his where he says, well, man doesn't stop when he's winning. Like, I kind of love that. Like, you're right. I guess keep rolling the dice. Keep moving your family every 4 years. Bigger and better. Let's go.
That's right. That's how a lot of people lost money in the crypto exchange, I suppose. Like, well, man doesn't quit when he's winning. Let's get on the exchange. We got to wait for gas fees to get a little bit lower. And then... So this house they have, their land, it's all gorgeous. I mean, the home is immaculate. Of course, it's a movie, whatever. But for fresh paint, everything is just amazing. Dad, to me, looks to be about, mid to late 60s. Who is going to give all of this up that late in life to start over in South Dakota? I mean, as an example, this whole time they're cooking in something called the summer kitchen, which is just like an outdoor stove. But, Mom literally calls it the summer kitchen.
Remember how all of us have our own summer kitchen? It's burning food outside.
So Carter is hard selling with a bit of overacting thrown in for good measure. And his main goal, as he says, is to get as many Republicans as possible to move to South Dakota so they can outnumber all these shifty Democrats, which causes a blow up, of course, and Grandpa lights up Carter. Mom steps in to explain that they don't talk politics in the house. Carter apologizes and sort of throws Alice under the bus here by saying he didn't know Grandpa was a Democrat because Alice never mentioned it in any of her letters.
Dude, did you catch that too?
Yeah. And
I thought that same thing.
And this is where so right when he appears on screen, I'm unsure if I like him or not.
Yeah. I
mean, once he starts talking, like, I don't really know. Like he showed up, I was like, okay, he's a handsome dude, whatever. 3-piece wool suit. It looks really hot out there.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Whatever. And he starts talking, and the more he's like hard selling the move to Dakota, like you said, snake oil thing or whatever. Then he says this. I'm like, okay, so he's going to be the bad guy because you don't say that. I mean, that is an insane thing to say.
Yeah. It's right away. I was like, it kind of put the hairs on the back of my neck, like, because especially the way he said it, like, I don't know if that's how they wrote it, but that's how it definitely came off as him. Well, she didn't say anything in any of her letters. Alice, come on.
Yeah. Like, all right, dude, thanks, man. The reason Joe Carter is in town is to give a presentation to the locals about moving to South Dakota, which we are now in the middle of in this next scene. Everybody is gathered around the town gazebo, and the whole thing is lit by torches. And I got uncomfortable. This is the second time in this movie that I've gotten uncomfortable based on current political events. Number one is when Joe Carter goes, not only just anybody, not any people, the right people. And I'm like, what do you mean by the right people, Joe? What are you trying to say? The second is when you have a bunch of rich white people in a meeting with a bunch of tiki torches. That bothered me. I was like, okay, but maybe I'm just a little too online. So, it evoked a little too much of recent events. But anyway, Carter is up on the gazebo around the town gazebo doing his thing. He's speechifying and whatever. People are kind of buying in, and Grandpa, who's just a shit disturber, starts hollering about snakes and better bring your frostbite cure. And some lady's like, does it really get cold in the Dakotas? And he's like, can't tell. The thermometers all freeze and explode.
That's what I love about, like, I don't know how accurate this is, but that whole scene made me happy because it was like how easily you could just move a group of people's thoughts around. You're like, they're ready to go. They're already packing up their covered wagon. They're like, when it gets cold, I didn't know about cold.
You have weather there.
It's just like, Jesus.
people are kind of asking questions. Carter either can't answer them or just kind of wants to get the thing moving again. So, of course, what else are you going to do in a musical but start singing?
I'd remind you, all of you, that Mr. Carter is here as an invited guest. And we're going to listen to him tell us about Dakota in his own way, without interruption.
I'd be glad to tell you some more about Dakota, without interruption.
Where the roots grow deep and the winds blow clean, where the air is sweet and the summer's green, where virgin fields await the plow, a great tomorrow is dawning now. Dakota, Dakota, where a man stands tall. Dakota, Dakota, where there's land for all.
I think a man could stand tall wherever they are. It's a beautiful garden. It seems like a lovely place to live.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that song is no Oklahoma. I'm going to tell you that right now.
No, but you know what? It is a kind of a pretty good song. I didn't mind it. I was like, okay, it definitely beats the hell out of the marching tunes.
I do like the part right there where it's where a man stands tall. That's a good step down.
Yeah, I like it.
I like that.
At some point, Carter begins to throw these tiki torches to the men in the audience, and they start carrying them around and marching around, and it's Charlottesville all over again. Like, I didn't like it. And only
I got triggered.
And only because they're all Republicans. Like, it's just like, that's it. If this wasn't a political movie at all, I wouldn't have had a second thought about it. But right when you set it up from the jump, you're like, okay, my mind is just in political mode, and I don't like myself for it. So after this scene, we're back at the farm. Grandpa overhears Dad and Mom talking about not being able to move to the Dakotas until next year because the St. Louis trip that they're planning would get in the way of the move. Mom makes a good point that if they wait, all the good land might be gone by then. And already I'm like, well, then why are you going? You have very fertile land right here. What are you talking about? Stay there.
Well, also, do you notice the switch, man? Like, he was like, well, we should probably get going. You know, we're winning. We should get out. And the mom's like, well, I don't know about that. Now, after the Dakota song, she's like, well, if we're going, we better go because I want to get the good land. God damn it! Like, I'm not getting the scrub brush land, buddy.
This is gaslighting right here. Like, make her. He's telling the boys at the bar, like, I made her to tell me, so she feels good.
She leaves that meeting. She is jazzed.
Mom makes a good point that if they wait, all the good land might be gone by then. Plus, why make the trip when Grandpa might not be with them for much longer? If you get my meaning, I felt that was a little vibe in there too.
Yeah.
So feeling guilty for being older, I guess, Grandpa rallies the kids and agrees they should all move. They should get behind Dad's idea to move, or now it's Mom's idea. I kind of lost the thread on that one. Of course, they do this by singing the Dakota song at the parents in the kitchen while marching around them in a circle like piranha or some kind of toe-headed shark party. It was just, it was really weird, but it's a musical and that's what happened.
That's how you communicate your approval.
Yeah. The song carries through a moving montage with the family all loaded up into the wagons, carrying furniture and whatnot, traveling across the plains together, leaving all the fertile land they used to know for new unknown fertile land. Arriving into town in time to find Carter holding court in the middle of town, complaining that Congress didn't let them split into two states, even though they fulfilled all the state's requirements. And it was probably because Congress knew that they would be sending 4 Republican senators instead of 2. So, I mean, he's just holding court, man, and riling up the townsfolk and getting them really upset. And conspiracy theorizing all over. This is where it starts. It's like, well, I know this is why they did. Yeah. Like, you don't know anything, Joe, but that's fine, whatever.
That whole entrance into town.
It was weird.
Oh my gosh. It gave me so much anxiety.
Yeah. Because you know what? And I sort of just realized this, like the way that Joe Carter is acting and he does his movements, it is very much like a play. And they say the difference when you're acting in a movie versus or TV show versus a play is when you're in theater, your movements are big because you need everybody to see them. There's no camera, but if you're in a movie or TV show, the camera's right there, so you can be a little more subtle. It seems like that's what Joe Carter is doing. He's doing these big, like he puts his foot up on like the side of the railing and like leans like really over exaggerated in the thing, and so it seems more like a play, like a musical stage musical, right?
And there are a few people in this that do that. You can tell that they're dancers first and actors second.
Yeah, same.
And he's sort of one of those characters. There's somebody who does that. And then the guy, Steve Harmon, who plays Ernie Stubbs.
Yeah,
Stubbins,
hero.
Yeah, that legend.
Yeah,
he also does that. He has this big charismatic overacting that he does for no reason because it's much more for the stage.
So he pauses his weird speech to greet Alice and her family, but not before a slick-looking cowboy called Ernie Stubbins rushes over to help Alice off her horse. Which, by the way, Ernie Stubbins and his crew, he has a crew, they were like in this small, kind of rather ornate carriage without a top. And instead of a roof or whatever, they had a parasol, and the parasol had like fringe around it. And I'm like, this is a very delicate and dainty thing for these like 5 cowboy dudes to just be sitting in, listening to people prattle on about statehood. It was just seemed odd.
And they had like I thought this again was going to go a whole different way because their initial approach, like with Stubbins coming over, I thought these guys were going to be seedy dudes. I thought they were going to carry on through the movie. They seemed like the local riffraff.
Like they were going to harass Alice.
Yeah, and just be general dickheads to all the people in the town.
True. Yeah, but they weren't. He was being very polite, although a little bit forward. He was being very polite.
He's a cowman.
It's true,
They don't mess around.
No. So Alice gets off her horse and she's looking at him the way she also looked at Joe Carter. And so we get a little whiff of maybe a love triangle, perhaps. We're not really sure.
Yeah.
Carter tells Dad, and I don't know Dad's real name, so I just call him Dad through this whole thing. Carter tells Dad that, well, he already has a job lined up for Alice as the local school teacher because the school's been closed. They don't have a school teacher, as well as lining up a house and land for the family. And he makes it a point to be like, well, the house isn't anything, but it's something. And it's something I'm sure that like they didn't really plan for, and not knowing how all of this works when you move into some brand new land, it seemed pretty presumptuous to be like, oh, I got you the perfect house. It's run down. Why does it exist? Why is it run down? Well, how is it already built big enough for a family of 10 people? But you want more people to move to the Dakota. What did someone come and leave? They built this big house and then they left. It's a mansion, a 10 bedroom house. It's a mansion. Sorry.
Well, yeah, even if you put 3 kids to a room, which I'm sure they had no problem doing, it's like you're 28, still living with your parents. You have 2 younger siblings with you. It's just that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never thought about that, and I thank you for bringing it up. Like there was already a house there that was there long enough to be old,
right?
And why did those other people leave? And like how many people have been in the Dakota Territory?
I would have the instant sketch, dude. We're turning around. We're leaving. Yeah. So Carter tells some guy to take over his speech for him, and the guy does, and the guy's spouting off about how they're going to send someone to Washington who isn't too tight-fisted to spend a buck. He's not as slick as Carter at, talking and stuff, but he's trying. Well, Grandpa is fed up hearing this nonsense, so he has the kids start playing the family theme song from the beginning. The crowd wanders over to the kids to see what's going on, and then Grandpa switches it up on them. He has the kids start playing the new Grover Cleveland single they just dropped in the barn a while back, starting from the beginning, talking about Washington and Lincoln and blah, blah, blah. The kids get to point at adults and lecture them and whatever, so it's probably really fun for them. Even Alice's new buddy, Ernie, is having a blast, so he's clearly like a Democrat, I think, and we're building now up to the beat drop, right? And when it hits, when they start switching it up to talk about Grover Cleveland, the crowd gets pissed and starts shaking this wagon that the family is all in, playing their instruments. They're shaking it. They get so mad.
Reminder, everyone, there are like 4 to 7-year-olds in this wagon they're trying to destroy.
Yeah. So from this scene, you can kind of tell a lot. The town is clearly split between Republicans and Democrats because some town folks love this and some hate it. And I can't tell where I am on the spectrum of this song. Alice's new friend Ernie and his pals rush over to help. All the while, Grandpa is grinning like a madman, and he is loving riling up the Republicans so easily with just a song.
Machiavellian.
The kids are having a great time too. I think it's pretty funny, really. It's a funny scene. It says a lot until Carter comes along and shuts everything down.
Had a long trip, and as I've told you before, they're going to be settling down here. Going to be our neighbors.
Mighty odd sense of humor. Come to a statehood rally in Dakota and sing about Grover Cleveland.
You own the streets here, do you? No. Keep them reserved just for speeches by Republicans? I kind of thought this was a free country. Yeah, that's a good one. I thought this was a free country. That's a good way to put it.
All right, Grandpa, don't you think you've said enough?
No, not nearly enough. I'm going to find out if we're still in the United States of America, if we made a wrong turn back there.
You should have turned before you got here.
Go back home. We don't want you here.
It won't do any harm if they sing a little song about Grover Cleveland. Do you think that's all it would take to get him reelected?
Dude, it's crazy. I was trying to think about it. That guy who did the Speechifying second.
Yeah. Who is he?
He looks like Michael Shannon from The Shape of Water.
I haven't seen that.
Oh,
he looks like a guy that's very familiar looking.
Yeah, he looks exactly. If you look up Michael Shannon, he looks just like him. It's crazy.
So Carter appeals to the crowd, sort of like ends everything, and Grandpa decides to not let it stop, and he challenges Carter to a bet that if Cleveland doesn't win, Grandpa will give Carter a wheelbarrow ride down the center of town. And, vice versa, of course, if Cleveland win, which is the most 1888 thing I could think of. Carter agrees and the two men shake on it, and the crowd goes wild as we get our first look at the family's new home in the next scene. And it is a downgrade, to say the least. There's lots of wood paneling, basic, like country vibes here. Grandpa comes in while Alice is getting ready for her first day teaching at the school. Mom is there cooking the laundry, which I know she's not really cooking it. She's washing it, but it's on the stove and she's dipping in, whatever. Looks like she's cooking.
Yeah.
And Grandpa goes in on Alice, telling her how dangerous it would be if people tried to set their own government up. And again, here we go. This is another sort of like parallel to modern politics that you have to like tell people this stuff.
Something's being started here that could wind up with a lot of people being hurt.
Boy, dog.
Anytime a bunch of men think they're going to turn against the president and the Congress of the United States, take the law into their own hands, and set up their own government, then they're going to be trouble.
A verb is a word that denotes action or a state of being.
Grandpa, that will do.
Well, I'm just telling her for her own good. Better off she got somebody else. Say, that young cowboy that held that horse for you yesterday, what's his name again?
Ernie Stuffins?
You remember his name, huh? Sure is a handsome devil, ain't he?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah. Big He-Man type. I like that.
Okay, Grandpa, calm down.
Damn it, Grandpa.
It's I don't know. The only thing I can think about is it was January 6th when he's giving that whole speech, dude. I'm like, God damn it.
I want that mom in the background just going, cheer up, Charlie. Give me a smile.
Dude, yeah, this whole thing is weird. So in case you wanted to know, Alice is like trying to drown out Grandpa by like getting ready and reciting basic English lessons or whatever she's going to give at the school, because now she's the new school teacher, right? So maybe it's a little hard to hear. That's what she's talking about, verbs and stuff, when he's like, it's really dangerous to go against Congress.
Why is he telling her? Like, that's the thing, is Alice is probably the most benign figure in this movie.
Yeah.
So why is he trying to drum it into her head?
I guess so. She goes against Carter and goes like, yeah, you know what? Your ideas are kind of weird and loony and I don't want to be a part of it, maybe.
Yeah. It's just the whole scene is like very like classic old person trying to tell a young person something. Like
anybody with ears.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He just wants to get this out. And that's kind of what I like about this grandpa. Is like he kind of has these really great realistic grandpa traits. Like
yes.
He's playing what a real old man would act like. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I do, because old guys love spouting off to anyone who's going to even attempt to listen.
And getting involved in their granddaughter's love life.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mom puts a stop to all the talk, and Grandpa tries to convince Alice to go for the other cowboy in town. It's only because, he's big and strong. It couldn't be because he's clearly a Democrat. That can't be it. You know what I mean? There's a knock at the door, and it's Joe Carter. He's saying the school board wants to ask Alice some questions about her teaching credentials before she starts the teaching job that he literally bullied her into the day before. And I think she even said, like, I don't know, I'm not a teacher. And he's like, it'll be fine. It's already set up. And then now it's like, well, we need to settle this because you're clearly unqualified.
Yeah.
So she's like, I don't know. What are we going to do? The kids have already probably left for school. Like, we can't just not go. And Carter then turns to Grandpa and goes, Grandpa, do me a favor, dude. Go to the schoolhouse and tell the kids that are on their way there that there will be no school that day. Carter takes Alice out of the house, and they're heading to the meeting when they take a detour so that he can sing at her by a little swamp. Okay, it's actually a really nice pond, and it's cool, but I don't really like Joe Carter, so there, I don't like this pond now.
The pond, reminded me of one of the scenes from what is it? Mary Poppins. It actually had some Mary Poppins vibes to it.
Okay. And it really, at this point, again, I still can't tell if Joe is the villain in the story or not. Like, sometimes he's likable, and other times he's just pushy and kind of talks down to folks.
Yeah.
So anyway, they run around and they sing and whatever, and they finally kiss. And I just wrote blech. And when I'm writing this, my daughter Alice is like she comes in and like looks every now and then. And she came in at this scene. She's like watching them sing or whatever. And they kiss, and she goes, ugh. She like leaves. Like, yeah, I feel you, man.
That's my feelings too.
Yeah. So we're over at the schoolhouse, and Grandpa tells the kids to all go home, and they explode out of the little group they're in, and they sort of just hang out and play on the playground. Like, no one really goes anywhere. At the prompting of a very small, crying little girl who's upset there was no school that day, Grandpa calls all the kids back and proceeds to open the doors and ring the schoolhouse bell. As the kids file in and take their seats, Grandpa gets baited into talking politics by a 6-year-old boy, which is just the greatest. And sort of to your point, like, I don't think he needed to be pushed that hard to say anything about politics at this moment. He's just like, hey, can I have some peace? Did you say politics? Well, let me tell you a thing or two about politics. The room of kids seems about as divided along political lines as the town is, with some kids being all, oh, Grandpa, you're a Southerner. And other kids are all like, the Civil War was really called the War Between the States. And a few kids get aggressive with one another, and it sort of seems like it's going to kick off. And Grandpa is at the same time kind of advocating for lowering the voting age at one point. Did you catch some of that?
No, I run that back. That's interesting. No.
Where he's saying, like, it's not fair that the adults of the state voted to divide the state into two, because when they're all gone, because they're old and they're all going to die.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And then the kids are going to be left to run the state that the adults broke into two. And it's not fair. And he says this. He goes, it wasn't fair that the kids were never asked their opinion on what was happening.
God, Grandpa is desperate. Just anybody. He wants cows to vote. Anybody.
I feel like at some point these kids are like resisting the urge to pick their boogers and eat it. And he's like, you know what we need? We need to get you guys involved. And kids should learn about politics and stuff, but like not like this. I don't know what you're talking about, Grandpa.
Yeah, that main kid, who baited him in the first place. He's already running for senator in 2 years. So.
Yeah, for sure, man. He's savvy. I can't remember anymore. Yeah. So anyway, Grandpa has the wildest take, and one kid asks what they could do about things if they can't even vote, and Grandpa settles them down with a song.
The youngest, bravest drummer boy in history, 'cause he kept Drumming, 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 while the enemy kept a-comin'. Drumming, 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 unafraid he held his ground. Drumming, 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 while the enemy kept a-comin'. Drumming while the shot and shell was bursting all around. In the middle of a battle that looked like sure defeat, all the ranks began to break, and someone yelled, "Retreat!" But not that little drummer boy. He stood there like a stone and played the battle roll all alone.
Which, you know, I thinking about that scene now, it sort of encompasses Grandpa's, I don't know, theme in life is to just keep wearing people down. You know, so the whole song is about like the drummer boy. He didn't quit. He couldn't fight, but he could really rally the troops and he could get everything going. And then everything was great because this kid kept playing the battle roll. And, you know, just, and that's, I think, what he's trying to instill in them, where it's like, just beat your parents over the head with your opinions. And eventually they'll listen to you and then we'll all win.
Yeah, never compromise, never see another person's point of view, always be obstinate and just disagree over and over and over again forever. Then, if that doesn't work, pack up your things and go, where you don't want me here, and if I know where I'm not wanted. You know, just be a real crybaby.
Absolutely. One little boy after the song stands up and declares that, you know what? He's going to go tell his pa that if he's old enough to help with the milking, he's old enough to have a say in how things are run. And Grandpa gets the biggest grin on his face because he has done his job. And I think Grandpa might be the villain in this movie.
If there has to be one, yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You know what it is? I think it's a parallel to Stephen King's Needful Things. Where this guy comes in and he gives everybody what they want, and then it all just turns to
he manipulates everybody.
Sour.
It's God, yeah. No, I could see that where it's like, because everybody else does have a certain redeemable quality that, to spoiler alert, like he never really gets a turn at, like, you know,
not
for the
really.
most part, at like really going, yeah, I see it your way. I think that, you know, I get it now.
Yeah. Maybe at the end. Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
So we slam cut from the schoolhouse into Carter chewing Grandpa out for not just sending the kids home like he asked, and for injecting politics into the classroom. And I hate to agree with this guy, but I do. I think that whole scene was really weird and I was uncomfortable for the kids. And I'm like, the whole time I'm going, if that ever happened to my kid, I would bring the moon down on the school, but there's no way. Get out of town.
Yeah. How dare you sing about a drumming boy to my children?
You're trying to tell my child to talk to me about who to vote for. This kid barely puts her toys away. You can't get out. No, stop.
That's something I actually have said to my children so many times that, like, I've told them, I go, you're a child with a child's brain. You don't make good decisions. And now they'll tell me when they screw up and I go, why did you do that?
Oh,
my daughter will go, it's Dad, because I have a child's brain. I don't make good decisions.
Yeah, I gave my kid the excuse of, like, you're still learning.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's so much nicer than
I'm still learning. And I'm like, yeah, but you've been learning for 4 years.
Could you step it up?
Yeah. Alice begs Carter to shut up and let her deal with Grandpa. And then Grandpa doesn't back down. And then she turns to Grandpa and then basically says the same thing. And she goes back and forth trying to play mediator. And eventually Alice tells Carter to leave. But he storms off in his horse and buggy. And this scene, you've never seen a man try to look manly and angry while at the same time climbing onto a small buggy and whipping a horse to get home like a big baby. It was the weirdest. It's like, well, fine. And he's like, you know, has a lot of masculine energy or whatever. And then he like steps up very daintily into this bouncing little ornate buggy and goes, whoosh. Very odd.
I did love it because it is you guys don't know how tiny this buggy was. And he's shambling up in it. And he's all scooched in. I'm leaving.
Yeah. And we see Dad sort of watching this whole thing go down. He's not saying anything. He's letting it play out. Dad tells Grandpa it's time to have a talk. And they go into the woodshed. And at this point, I'm afraid for Grandpa's life. I really expected Dad to reach up above the door jamb and pull a shotgun down and just ask Grandpa if he wanted anything before before he's done.
The old Yeller treatment.
Yes, I fully expected something like that.
Tell me one more time about the rabbits, George.
Yeah, Grandpa, look over there. Grandpa starts things off by reminiscing about abusing Dad when he was a boy, but it wasn't that bad because he, when he was beating him with a switch, he was missing on purpose most of the time. Okay. And basically this whole scene is Dad telling Grandpa to keep his opinions to himself when Joe Carter starts talking politics. And Grandpa says, no, absolutely not. He'll keep exercising his right to free speech. And now I'm back on board with Grandpa. Like, of course you can say that. It's in your own house. It's your family. You can say whatever you want. It's America. You have a point, Grandpa.
Well, I'm going to take umbrage with that. I think he does have the right to say that if he's out in the street. If he's in the house that he doesn't pay for or own, then I feel like there is a certain level of respect for the son and the wife who's putting him up.
Well, okay, yeah, whatever.
But in the street, absolutely. Go ahead.
Just start it, man. Dad tells him that if he's going to remain a part of the family, he'll practice self-control and not make trouble for Alice and Joe. And apparently not for Matt either.
Yeah.
Grandpa leaves the woodshed and heads to the house to pack up his things. All the grandkids are calling his name and crying. And like, Grandpa, please don't go. And he's like, well, I'm just not wanted around here no more.
See?
And Dad's like, the whole thing in the woodshed was like, just hold your tongue.
Yeah.
Just don't talk about when Joe's around. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to leave. Okay.
Right. He's like, I'm going to leave this family because being able to talk trash about Republicans is more important than close familial ties.
This man deserves to be online. Like, that's just, you know what I mean? I could close Facebook, but this man, P Drinker 49 will never know how wrong he is if I don't tell him.
Think about what Grandpa would be like if he had access to potentially hundreds of thousands of people with his written word.
He would be the guy sharing AI photos of like Trump holding the kittens. Have you seen those?
Oh, yeah.
With like the abs showing through his shirt and people share it and they go, God bless him. He's doing the greatest thing. And it's like, this is clearly, or like the ones where like this kid in sub-Saharan Africa built a working motorbike out of plastic bottles. Like and share and get this kid a scholarship. And it's like, he has like 3 feet. This is not real.
He's the guy sending the picture of these, what are clearly like in real life plastic coffin liners that they use in the South. And he says, these are FEMA's disposable coffins for when they all come and get us.
They've been coming and get us for years, man.
Yeah, man.
So all the kids are chasing after him, calling his name. They're tugging on his clothes, like literally trying to restrain him. And he's just gathering his shaving stuff, gets his Bible, and walks off into the sunset because he can't let things go.
To where? Is there a hotel in town? Where is he going?
And I noticed he wasn't even walking down like the gravel drive. He was literally like walking across the meadow. Like he was not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But, whatever. So
going to the Black Hills.
We move into the middle of a school board meeting and we see the head of the school board, whom we met when the family first rolled into town, who asks Alice to make a statement regarding the incident with Grandpa at the schoolhouse. She, of course, stands up for her grandpa, which is right here.
I wish you would all understand this. Anything my grandfather did, he did out of the goodness of his heart. He didn't mean to do anything wrong.
All have your opportunity to speak. Now, shall we behave like adults and allow Miss Bauer to continue without interruption?
And actually, I can't see the harm in anything my grandfather did. He merely pointed out...
You mean that you approve of what he did?
Oh. I mean, if we're going to educate the children, I can't see how there's any harm in letting them hear both sides of the question.
What do you mean, both sides? This question of statehood has already been settled.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Let me ask you one thing. When your grandfather went there to the school to poison the mind...
Mr. Bowers, too much of a gentleman.
Mr. Whopper, sit down. to poison the minds of the children. Did he do so with your knowledge and consent?
I knew where he was going. Yes.
Oh. Mr. Whomper. First of all,
wow.
That's a good last name. And I'm kind of like reminded this is sort of just kind of the bullcrap we still hear today about poisoning the minds of children and controlling what schools can teach and what they can't teach. And, to a certain extent, regulations are fine, but like we get granular lately and it's really odd and uncomfortable. And, you hear now it's like poisoning the blood of America and poisoning the mind of this and that. And it's like, we're still figuring this out. We're still talking about the same stuff that was being addressed in the 60s, which is, odd.
Yeah, man. And it is weird because it's like you're watching this scene and anybody watching it could draw a clear parallel to something that they've heard, either in a congressional hearing or, people on YouTube just like making videos about like, oh, California school board said that they were doing this today.
Yeah.
And, it is wild to think about how far we haven't come in human interaction sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So Joe Carter stands up and says it was him that sent Grandpa to the school that day and not Alice, which sort of made me realize, I guess they were trying to blame Alice for Grandpa's sort of outburst, I guess you can call it. Suddenly, Grandpa walks into the meeting. Carter stands up to start grilling Grandpa, and Alice resigns right there in front of everybody before things could get any worse for him. She storms off, and Carter chases after her again. She tells him to leave her alone, and then he gets knocked into like a vegetable cart somehow. I sort of scared by a horse and ran into a kid and fell down, and Alice looks back, could care less.
Yeah.
And as she's walking away, our friend Ernie Stubbins offers to escort her off the street. Very gentlemanly. Yeah.
Absolutely. All class.
We're back in the school board meeting as Grandpa stands up to speak and offers a proposition. If they convince Alice to come back and keep the school open, Grandpa won't say another word about politics. And somehow Dad and Mom are in the audience. And as Grandpa heads back to his little room that he rented or whatever, like the next scene is Grandpa in like a tiny little flat, clearly like a rented room somewhere. And he's packing up again. He just moved it. This is what I don't understand. The whole thing is, I think it's the same exact day. So Grandpa has moved out, moved into a room, and then now he's moving out of the room, even though he said like, hey, if you can convince my granddaughter to come back, I'll shut up and I'll be a good boy. But anyway, Dad shows up, Grandpa's packing to go somewhere and tries to get him to move back home. He tells Grandpa that they were invited to play in Rapid City on the night the election returns come in, and they need him to lead the band on account of they haven't had a practice since he left, which, again, I thought was just that friggin' morning. But I guess time is a construct, Matt.
Yeah, man. A movie that has no anchor points to time.
Yeah.
And so you don't know, was that leaving the house this morning? Was it 7 weeks ago? Where is everything?
Exactly. So, of course, Grandpa agrees and he comes back home and everything's fine. As they exit, we pull up to the town hall, I guess, where the family band is playing a jaunty little number and the whole town is dancing and singing. But the dancing is weird, man. The guys are leaping around and chasing each other or something like that. It's kind of not clear, and I can't help but wonder if this is what we would all still be doing if Fortnite hadn't been invented. It was a lot of, again, musical theater. West Side Story is the only thing I can kind of like draw a parallel to. It's one of the few musicals like this that I've seen.
Again, I actually would say Oklahoma.
Okay.
Oklahoma is very much this. Like, they did a big old wild dance when a guy got off a train. It's a bunch of cowboys jumping over luggage. And when they did the which I actually like Oklahoma. But yeah, at the very end, they go to this big, I don't know what they called it. Some sock hops were in the 50s, but
yeah.
Some soap box derby. I don't know what it was, but they kind of open up on that. A bunch of people already doing dancing and stuff.
Kissing a cow for a hay penny.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is wild though, because when it kind of opens up on this, you notice that there's black in the background. Like anywhere there's not bunting, it's a black void. And it was freaking me out the whole time because I'm just like, where are they right now? Like, I understand they're on a set in real life. But like, where is this?
Yeah.
I've never been in a room that if you fall off the back balcony, you just go into black.
Yeah.
It's wild.
God.
But it also looked like Hall of Presidents. I noted that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Carter is there, of course, and as he sees Alice playing in the band, he lets his intrusive thoughts get the better of him, leaping into the fray of dancers and grabbing the hand of some random woman, which turns out is Goldie Hawn.
Yeah.
In her first TV or first movie role, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
He positions himself directly in front of Alice and starts dancing. And by dancing, I mean doing weird thrusting high kicks at her while making eye contact with her. He brings Goldie friggin' Hawn front and center of Alice, and she's on the clarinet or whatever, and he's like doing these weird jaunty things, and it was awkward.
Well, and she's a great dancer. Goldie Hawn's doing an awesome job. She's in this awesome yellow dress. So it's funny. Her name is Goldie, and she's in this big yellow dress, and very noticeable. Like, she stands out.
Yeah, for sure. So Dad sees this, and he figures that she needs a dance battle partner. So he takes her to the floor, and together they serve Carter. Sort of. I don't know. I guess there's a lot of partner changing here with the dancing. Alice is dancing with Ernie. I think that's who it was.
Yeah, Stubbins.
Yeah. Then at some point there's like a floor slapping contest where Ernie and Alice are doing these weird dances, and like 5 or 6 men are kneeling in front of them, beating the floor to death. Odd.
South Dakota, baby.
So the whole thing is...
Oh, sorry, just Dakota territory.
Just Dakota's
I'm
now,
sorry.
yeah, come on.
Spoilers.
The whole thing is very West Side Story, like I said, with lots of leaping and jaunty back kicks, and really turns the whole Cowboys as overly masculine on its head kind of thing, you know?
Yep.
It's also like a 10-minute scene, which is very inappropriate. Finally, however, Matt, the dancing ends, and someone screams in the room, shouting that the first reports from New York are finally in, because it's election night, right?
Yeah. Well, in this scene, I'll say that when it gets here, this is the best. This is the best of the movie.
Yes, the first reports from New York are in. Grover Cleveland is winning. Suddenly, we're singing the Grover Cleveland song for a second, which then spurs Carter to kind of stop everything and leap up and start this call and response song that I found weird.
Mr. N, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Cleveland says the future looks bright.
Yes, that's right. The future looks bright.
That's politics. The dollar is sound and the market is right.
Yes, that's right. The market is right.
That's politics. Harrison says the market is right. The dollar is sound. The future looks bright.
That's statesmanship.
No Democrat politician, he.
A great Republican statesman.
An inspiration to us all.
Oh, Benjamin Harrison, he's far beyond comparison. He'll keep
I love that everyone's in this room, and it's the Republicans and the Democrats, and they're all labeling themselves. They have little buttons on, like little, ribbons or whatever.
Yeah, just in case you don't know who's who.
Yeah, and they're just, they're shouting across this big vacant room at each other. And the Republicans, when they start singing the Benjamin Harrison song or whatever, they like link arms and they do this like spin, like a propeller spin, where like Dad is the anchor, like in the middle, it looks like. And everyone's spinning around, and it's the most least masculine thing I could think. Like, it very much is like a dance battle. We're going to be doing these things to prove our point, and it's made me laugh very hard.
I can't stop but thinking about how they established that the Grover Cleveland song was written by Grandpa, right? He wrote that song.
Yeah.
Who's writing this Benjamin Harrison ditty?
Maybe it was already written. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm wondering, did Dad like whip it up real fast? It feels very loose.
It's also kind of a good song. I don't know. I kind of liked it. Like the call and response thing, before it's like, I didn't understand it. We're like, it's just,
that's politics.
It's politics.
Right,
the economy's like sort of important. There's other things more important, but I mean, I guess I don't know. Your point is here.
GDP kind of runs the country. So yeah, it's a little important.
The whole scene is very strange. I mean, mainly because the voting is already done. We're just waiting for the results at this point. So why are we all arguing about which president is right or which political party is right? Carter and Dad are dancing and singing with all the other Republicans in town, and the Dems are across the room being kind of weird in their own right. Eventually, we get all the totals, and Grover Cleveland wins, which means Grandpa is due his wheelbarrow ride through town. Grandpa approaches Joe Carter to collect on his bet, and someone in the crowd says they're going to wait for the official word to come over the wire first. And Joe, to his credit, knows he's beaten and agrees to give Grandpa his prize. And as Grandpa takes his seat in this highly decorated and ornate wheelbarrow, Carter gets about 4 steps into giving Grandpa the ride, and a man enters very solemnly, telling the crowd, well, here, I'll just, I'll play it a little bit.
Hold everything!
This man looks tired, by the way. Looks exhausted.
Harrison won.
It's Ben Harrison.
Come on, cut it out.
Elected president.
That ain't even possible.
It's true. True. The Electoral College has named Harrison president.
Come on. What's some college got to do about it? What about the votes?
That's right. That's not the point. Our president is always named by the Electoral College.
Well, that don't even make sense.
Right.
If Cleveland got the most votes, he's got to be president.
That's the way it's set up in our Constitution. We won!
Don't you know anything at all about American history? Don't you realize that...
All I realize, the Democrats elect a president, and the Republicans cheat him out of it.
Benjamin Harrison.
Oh my God.
There you go. And here we are, even in modern day, where, the Electoral College gets to determine who the president is still. And
in 2016,
yep,
I'm living it again.
Yep. Despite the will of the people, we're still at the whim of people who can literally change their mind and vote whoever they want to, which is what happened.
Every election year, this same exchange happens, and it's been happening since the 1880s or earlier, clearly.
Yeah.
That line, though, when he says, that's how it's set up in our Constitution.
Yeah.
Who's that line for? Is that for us? Or are they trying to educate the audience? Like, we're idiots?
Yeah,
like,
I think some exposition or something where...
Yeah.
You know what I did appreciate about that scene is how good of an actress the gal who plays Alice is.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think it's always really hard to kind of play surprise and like, what are you talking about? She does it really, really well. Like the entire, again, back to the original part of the opening segment of the show, everybody is very, very good. All the extras in the background it's kind of the same level. Like, what are you, they're each doing their own thing and it looks natural. It's great.
That's Leslie Ann Warren, and she's a fantastic actress in her own right. She's been in a lot of great things. And yeah, the fact that she has to stand there in multiple scenes and just react is got to be so tough.
Yeah. Yeah, when you get nothing from anybody else, you're on your own at that point.
Yeah, you're just smiling and nodding, and she makes it look totally natural.
Yeah. So Grandpa, needless to say, and the rest of the Dems in the room are shell-shocked. The Republicans start singing and dancing until someone throws a really lovely slice of chocolate cake at someone, hits him in the face, and then the whole spot blows up. Tables overturned, effigies ripped down, people are swinging from the rafters on the ornate bunting, and clearly something needs to happen. I mean,
I don't know if that was a callback, by the way, the chocolate cake, because there's a line when they meet Joe Carter, when they go, let's go inside and get Mr. Carter a nice piece of chocolate cake.
No, that's right. Yeah, I don't know, man, maybe. But Dad has an idea to calm the crowd, and he's playing God Save the Queen.
The next president of the United States has been chosen. And the future
future of Dakota has been settled. It's and nothing we can do here now is going to change things one iota. Not one bit. I know some of you have been bitterly disappointed. I want to pass along to you.
So we were talking in Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, I believe, or maybe it was Moon Pilot, I forget, where like one of the actors was just clearly lit off of lunchtime cocktails.
Yeah,
I feel like this man was also. I mean, the amount of slurring.
No, you're right. Like Buddy Ebsen's really, he's trying to get through this.
And nothing here and now we can do is going to change. It's almost like Bill Cosby-esque. That's funny, dude. I love it. And of course, obviously, I know that he's not really playing God Save the Queen. It's America, my country 'tis of thee. But it's the same melody, which I always found very funny too. When we want to talk about being, patriotic and celebrating the country, we, use a song that was taken from the country we left. It was very funny.
Yeah, no, he also says, I could do this all night. He's not playing. His kids are.
I could do this all night. Yeah, you have 6-year-olds going, Dad, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. It's a school
play,
night.
God damn it. Yeah. I'm showing these people what for.
You're going to live in the woodshed with the grandpa if you don't just stop it. Just stop it. Grandpa invites Joe for his wheelbarrow ride because clearly he lost, and so he needs to make good on his bet, right? And this makes Joe feel good. So good, in fact, that he rushes Alice and gives her a kiss. And she slaps him and is clearly not feeling Joe at all anymore. But instead of leaving her alone like any normal, rational human being would, he picks her up, grabs her, and jumps into the wheelbarrow waiting for his ride. And she's like really kind of pissed off about it.
Oh, yeah.
And Grandpa, instead of like defending his family and saying, hey, you get your damn hands off her, anything like that, he just gives the wheelbarrow ride. He's like, okay, well, this is what, he's taking what's rightfully his.
Oh, she's riding too? Okay,
yeah,
let's go.
And as they progress down the street, Joe sings a song to Alice, which is the song that they were singing in one of the other scenes. And she eventually comes around and she's giving him the little bite, the lip bitey thing and the doe eyes. And she's like, okay, whatever. And then eventually they kiss and everyone's happy. And I guess Ernie can go kick rocks. I don't know. I was disappointed that Ernie didn't get the girl.
Yeah, no, me too. And I looked this up, and apparently this is a custom in the 1880s in the Dakotas called wildcat taming. And it's where if you pick a gal up and you could hold on to her until she runs out of energy, she's yours by law.
There you go. That's it.
So I can't listen. I didn't write this. All right.
No.
This
is the law, man.
This is what it is in the territories.
You know what? In Grover Cleveland's America, this is what happened. But just when we thought that this whole movie was over, because it definitely feels like we're winding down, right? The same little man who upended the celebration the last time comes rushing outside shouting, wait. He says that, okay, so I guess to preface, they're all rooting for Harrison because Harrison said he's going to split the Dakotas into states. And everyone there is really excited so they can send 2 senators instead of 4, or 4 senators instead of 2. And kind of like help, overturn the Democratic run country. And
get more Republicans in there.
Yeah. So this guy comes out and he says President Cleveland, before he leaves office, will grant statehood to North and South Dakota before Harrison takes office. And the crowd, of course, loves this because they'll, like I said, be able to send 4 representatives to Congress. The announcer guy says that there's more because Montana and Washington are also becoming states. Which makes Grandpa happy because I guess those are Democratic areas and they'll be sending 4 Democrats, which, like Grandpa later screams, will wipe out the 4 Dakota representatives. So we're kind of all back to square one. Grandpa gets up. He starts conducting the band. Some men jump up and start pulling the wagon that the band was, on. They're pulling it around town and the whole place turns into a parade. There's dancing and there's prancing and leaping and singing. As the credits roll, I'm left with a concern that all of this anger and aggression was for nothing. We literally achieved 0. They were scared to vote for Grover Cleveland because he said he didn't want the statehood. He got it anyway. And they're like, oh, well, that's all we wanted. We don't really care about any other policies. But that's fine. So anyway, that is the genuine, original, one and only down home family rich, very, very wealthy band.
This did not get re-released to theaters. I think it went straight into the vault, and it's been there nearly ever since, and that's damn fine with me.
Yeah, it's a very fractured film, and then we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to learn more about facts and who was in it and what happened, but also what this movie is actually based on, and maybe a couple clues as to why we haven't really heard of it too much. I mean, the name alone is very intriguing.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised because learning about the realism of this movie is actually way more interesting than the movie. Like the fact that this had ties to reality and is actually a very treasured piece of Dakota history.
Yeah.
Like they're really proud of this band. It's very interesting.
Absolutely.
You know, it's kind of our Oregon Trail, to be honest. Like it's very weird.
See, there you go. Don't die of dysentery. Hang on, everyone. It's Buena Vista Boys. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We are back here, and we're going to learn some cool facts and fun nonsense about the one and only original Genuine Family Band. Matt, take it away, brother.
For this segment, I have called it Facts and Flights of Fancy.
Ooh,
because I thought that was a little more 1800s. So the director of this movie, again, like so many other Disney movies, like this movie feels like it was made for television. Like it feels like a feature-length film, but it was made with sort of television expertise. And the director, Michael O'Herlihy, whose brother is Oscar-nominated actor Dan O'Herlihy, who some people might know as the villain from Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, Cochran, the main warlock at the end of the movie.
Okay.
That guy's a great actor. He's also the old man in RoboCop.
All right.
So yeah, that's this director's brother.
Nice.
Michael was a major TV director in the U.S. From the 50s to the 80s. And this is one of his few movies. When you look at his credentials, almost everything is television. And so he directed episodes of Maverick, 77 Sunset Strip, MASH, Star Trek, Magnum PI, Trapper John MD. Unfortunately for him, he directed 0 episodes of The Twilight Zone, so he is dead to me.
Right.
And so I found this interesting is he directed a TV movie for Disney called The Young Loner that featured the Munsters' own Butch Patrick. So he's Eddie Munster, right?
Okay.
And some people, even in the clips that we showed, may have noticed that Butch Patrick showed up as an uncredited role in this movie. He is the boy who baits Grandpa into talking about the Civil War. Yes, his role is actually Johnny, even though he's not in the credits. I looked it up.
Oh, man.
I know. But yeah, so that's why this felt so much like a TV movie, because it was. And then later it was actually split up to go on to TV. It was in the Wonderful World of Disney. In 1972, it was split up into a 2-parter. The budget for this film, because I didn't look up the budget, unfortunately, for Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. I really wish I would have.
Yeah.
The budget for this film was $4 million. And
wow, that seems like a lot.
Right? That seems like a ton for what they would have been filming in 66 to 67.
Something like that. Yeah.
And so the movie made $2.25 million.
Ooh, not good.
Between Canada and US. So it made a little more than half back. But I also kind of get it, because it's like when you're making the trailers for this movie, like what are you telling people to come see? Like drama, intrigue, political scandal, and rivalry.
Yeah, that's a good point. How do you sell this movie?
Yeah, exactly. And so
romance, I guess. I don't know. There's not even any romance.
Not really.
It's just some guy pushing up on a girl.
Yeah, there's not even really a villain. Even like the scene where they're doing the dance off, the guys don't seem to be sore at each other, like mad. Like even Stubbins isn't mad.
No, it's like, I'm upset that you won this tiny argument, but you can tell that everyone's probably just good friends. You know what I mean? Or at least like they're I don't know. No one's holding a grudge. Yeah.
They're far less angry at stealing girls than they are at like voting the wrong way.
Yeah, that's right.
It's wild.
Absolutely.
No, so this film came out in March 21st, 1968, and it premiered at Radio City Music Hall. And the movie had to be cut down from 156 minutes to 110 minutes. It was too long.
What is that? 40 minutes?
Yeah. So look at this. It says basically it's 2 hours and 36 minutes is what the movie was originally going to be. And I think it's just about around 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but also cutting that stuff out is why there's a feeling of choppiness and like we're going from one scene to another immediately, and why no one seems to have a stake in what's going on because we haven't developed any characters.
Yeah.
So because just they pulled out 30 minutes of who knows what, and it's apparently gone. By the way, there's no director's cut. That is gone,
dude.
Whatever they chopped out is gone forever. It's crazy.
That is, especially because even back before Disneyland was a thing, Walt was like holding on to stuff, and you go to like the Disneyland archives or whatever, there's stuff everywhere of like the weirdest crap that this company holds on to. It's kind of weird that they would just lose almost 40 minutes of footage of a complete project.
Well, yeah. And a project that he was a part of. Like this wasn't the 70s when like somebody else was in charge, right? This is Walt was interested in this. He bought the rights to it. He was part of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's interesting that something that he had buy-in on ended up going either. I don't know if it went missing or they just chucked it. I really have no idea.
Probably a little bit of both.
It doesn't exist that anyone can find.
It's crazy.
This is even crazier to me. Over 700 youngsters were interviewed and screen tested for this movie. Think about 700 children having to sing that Grover Cleveland song, Stomping Around.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, if lobotomies were still able to be gotten, sign me up.
Yeah.
The one good thing about this movie that I think we agree on is we both feel like the music is pretty fire. Like for the most part, the tunes are jaunty, they're fun.
Yeah, I definitely agree. More so in the later part of the movie, like the opening ones. I'm not like marching. I'm not like a marching band guy.
Yeah.
So I didn't really resonate with those.
That's no John Philip Sousa fan over here.
No.
But the reason the music is so good is because Richard and Robert Sherman, the Sherman brothers,
there you go,
those two Disney legends, they did the music for this. And they reported that the story could become an entire musical, which they believed exactly what Walt wanted to hear. So the Sherman brothers worked closely with the screenwriter to sort of work these songs into the storyline. Like, so what I mean by that is like, they're like, okay, this is the script. How can our songs further the plot like it's dialogue?
Yeah. And you know what?
I mean?
And that's what I was hoping for. And that's what happened. Like, writing the script for me for this movie, it felt much easier because the songs contained a lot of exposition that normally would just be spoken, or we'd have different scenes like in Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, or even in Moon Pilot, we have like a 45-second scene. You're like, and then that's it, but it's important for the plot. You should put that in the song, and I think it's a little bit easier. So it definitely, in that regard, it flowed a lot better.
And like you had written here, and I think this is a good note, Walt had sought out the Sherman brothers to help the project because he felt the story was a little too flat. And I would have agreed. If this would not been a musical, this would have been a snore fest.
Dude, the story, there is no story. It's a family moves from one state to another, period. That's it. There's nothing at stake, right? They don't risk losing anything. The only thing at risk of being lost is Grandpa's ego being bruised. That's it. Like there's nothing compelling about it at all.
That's true. Well, and then so the title song that they wrote, the one and only genuine original family band, that became the title of the motion picture. After hearing the song, Disney decided to add more songs to the film and turn it into a musical. So that we kind of just talked about that is this went from being a screenplay to a musical because there needed to be more. There needed to be more going on in this movie, and the Sherman brothers did such a good job writing And apparently, Robert Sherman reported that they did so under protest, believing the subject matter too mundane to be made into a feature-length musical film. And I would agree.
They're not wrong. But this
No.
is the genius of the Sherman Brothers. They could take something mundane and at least get you to happen and go, okay, that's not that bad.
Yeah. And what I like about the Sherman Brothers is their ability on almost everything to make a clear, concise song where you can understand the lyrics and the music pushes the emotion that they want you to have behind it.
Yeah.
Because if this movie is going to depend mostly on the music to inform you of how everyone's feeling and what's happening in a scene, you're going to need guys who are so good at writing that they can do that. So nothing gets muddied and or lyrics are too fast and too cool for people to understand.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they did a great job. I mean, they really took nothing and made it something. Despite their work, the reception from critics was not great. Variety described it as an overly contrived feature, which soon forgets its promise and premise and turns instead into a political mishmash of events, which has little novelty.
Yeah, I mean...
Nailed it. Amen.
You're not wrong.
I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times wrote that the film is, I am afraid, the worst Disney movie in a long time.
Oof.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I guess we'll have to come back when we've seen all of these that come previous. But
yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Because this is 68, so I think there's a few duds coming up on the horizon.
Yeah, for sure, man. Spoke too soon, this man did.
Clifford Terry of the Chicago Tribune called it another Walt Disney studio production that isn't designed to appease squirmy family audiences, since it is filled with a flurry of lipid songs, Brennan's tiresome tirades, and the Warren Davidson's mush. I don't know what that means. The mush.
That's crazy.
There's a bunch of other ones. Boston Globe says flat like a tubeless tuba. And it compares it to it's no runner to Mary Poppins or Sound of Music. I feel like I said the same thing. So.
Yeah.
But in this movie, you may have seen fresh-faced Kurt Russell, right? This is pre-computer wears tennis shoes, Kurt Russell.
Of course.
So Disney legend Kurt Russell had already appeared in Follow Me Boys, 1966.
Great
in a
movie.
1967 episode of Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color before being cast as drummer Sidney Bauer in the family band. Reflecting on the film, Kurt described it as an interesting show with a cast of all ages. And in the 10 feet off the ground musical number, he played a protective big brother, helping his on-screen siblings down from the stage and lifting them as part of the choreography. They're just 16 at the time. That's crazy. 16 years old.
Yeah.
Russell wasn't known for musicals and found the dancing to be torture. Despite his discomfort, he handled the role with grace and care. Like you said, very professional, every single person.
Yeah. And, looking at him, because he's obviously the most popular, so you're going to check him out. But
yeah,
it's no surprise that he became this big mega star. I mean, he had charisma. He had it. Every scene he was in, he did a fantastic job. He didn't chew the scene too much. He expressed what was going on in the scene, and he held his role as, sort of, I think, sometimes anchoring the family for the reactions, so whatever's happening, like dad and grandpa are talking or whatever, then he's generating kind of what the vibe of what the family should be doing in the background. He did a great job.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting now knowing what we knew from last show is that he's also got this incredible like baseball potential sitting inside of him.
Right.
It's fascinating now when I watch him. I just can't stop thinking about how he would have been great as at baseball as well as much as being on screen.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is interesting because this goes back to Goldie Hawn. So the family band choreographer Hugh Lambert was working on an in-production TV series, Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, which is a show that I love.
Oh, it was great.
And for the role of the giggly girl in the West of the Wide Missouri production number, he recommended a young woman who was making a great impression on the new show. By the time Family Band was released in March 1968, Laugh-In was a hit. Goldie Hawn, then billed as Goldie Jean, was well on her way to becoming a star, and indeed, she won an Oscar as Best Supporting Actress in Cactus Flower, 1969.
See, and you can see it too in her, in the gal who plays Alice, and I guess that's what I mean. I guess I'm trying to reinforce this for some reason and justify my thought. But you could pick most any one of these cast members, and you can make them into a star. Like there's that much quality in how they carry themselves in the scene and how they stay in character and really help sell what else is happening in the scene, but not too much. It's great. And she does a fantastic job at being a little flirty and smiley. And then she goes in the background, but you can still pick her out. Like, she carries herself very, very well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's you just wish these people had more to do because they had such great actors. They picked out wonderful people to play these roles.
Yeah.
And you kind of just wish the story went somewhere to give them a little bit more to do, like let them stretch their legs a little.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is interesting, though, because Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn have been together forever. And this is, in fact, the movie that they met on. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn met on the set of this movie. At the time, both actors were determined not to date anyone else in the industry. Plus, given their 6-year age difference, romance simply wasn't in the cards. So, in 2012, Hawn reminisced about her first encounter, saying, "I was 21, he was 16, and I thought he was adorable, but he was much too young. And then years later, we met up again, and I liked him, and I remembered that I liked him very much when I first met him, but we both said we would never go out with another actor, so it just shows you never can tell."
Man.
Which is, it's wild.
Yeah, and like what
crazy.
What like a non-Hollywood thing to do, where it's like, there's a 4-year age difference. They'll just leave you alone.
Yeah. And I think that's funny that they kind of acknowledge it. She's like, well, he's cute and he's nice, but he's like, he's a 16-year-old fella, and I'm on a politically charged comedy show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm doing Laugh-In and you just playing baseball. It's funny because I saw an interview recently with Kurt Russell, and he was talking about his long-term relationship with Goldie Hawn, and he was like, Goldie is Goldie. Like, she's one of a kind. And if you know her, like that's who you get. Like, you see her on screen and like that's her. She's one of those rare people that you're sort of cast on your personality. Like, that's who she is. And she's like really kind. To even still be speaking kindly in that regard, like not even kindly, gushingly about your partner after so long. It's like, wow, it's a really nice story.
Yeah, man. It's that in the stars, that 1 in a million kind of situation happening.
Yeah.
They ultimately ended up meeting 17 years later. Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell reconnected at an audition for the movie Swing Shift, which they both were starred in.
Mm-hmm.
Russell, who was reading lines with Hawn, told Conan O'Brien that he almost ruined the encounter because he was so hungover. I didn't know Goldie at all outside of having worked with her many years ago, he explained. I just didn't know in my mind what I was going to see. She had a great body, and so the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Man, you got a great figure."
Fucking classic. I mean,
yeah, and it kind of came out quickly.
Yeah.
And it could have been wrong. And she said, "Why, thank you."
Could have been wrong. What do you mean it could have been wrong? I don't know, man.
Could have been a wrong thing to say. I don't know.
Oh, wrong thing to say. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Well, because but it's like, they're Hollywood people, I'm sure people telling her that all the time.
Yeah, I think now if you said that, that's you're not getting hired for whatever project you're auditioning for. There's no way.
Yeah.
But back then, that's the highest compliment you can get from a man.
Yeah. It's a hungover man.
Yeah, I know.
So Alice, who is played by Leslie Ann Warren, some people, this was crazy because I knew her face. I knew it.
Yes.
But I didn't know where from until I looked it up. And people would most recognize her as Miss Scarlet from the movie Clue. That's who she became. And I thought it was interesting
Yes.
There's multiple references to The Happiest Millionaire, which came out a year before this.
Okay.
Probably because there's a lot of different parallels. Maybe the Sherman brothers wrote the music. I didn't look that up. But the person, John Hamilton, who played Joe Carter, right?
Okay.
So we've got John Hamilton.
Yeah.
And Leslie Ann Warren, both were the lead romantic partners in The Happiest Millionaire as well. So if you had saw that movie first, then watch this, you'd be like, oh, these actors are reconnecting in these romantic roles.
That could be why she was given she was really good at the doe-eye lip biting thing, man.
Oh yeah, she's fantastic. She didn't lose that in Clue either. She was great. God, I loved her in Clue.
Yeah.
Everyone will recognize Buddy Ebsen, who played Calvin Bauer. He was the father, not the grandfather. He was the father and the Republican. And he is no stranger to stage and screen, both big and small. He carved out his pop culture status as Jed Clampett in the Beverly Hillbillies, 1962.
That was him. Wow.
Yes. He didn't have a mustache and a floppy hat.
I love going through these movies, man, because these are faces of people that I've seen growing up in different things, but not in this way. And so you can't really, it's hard for me to pin down, but I knew I recognized that guy, and I knew he looked kind of like a taller Johnny Cash.
Yeah,
he's like a Johnny Cash vibe for sure, with his face structure and his hair. And I was like, okay, maybe that's it. I couldn't figure it out, but Jed Clampett, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and Jed Clampett is probably through Nick at Night is the first time I would have come across Buddy Ebsen, and so that's locked in for me as who he is. But then later, it's interesting. He had that show, and then later he had success in 1973 with the show Barnaby Jones. He kind of had like two dual roles. A lot of people probably know him as Barnaby Jones.
Okay.
And it was, so he had like a secondary, like big feature character. It's funny because on our show, we just did a shelter short where we went over a McDonald's commercial from 1988, where Buddy Ebsen comes back and reprises his role as Jed Clampett.
Oh, nice.
Trying to sell hamburgers.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. And then, so he was, unlike some other people, in one episode of The Twilight Zone, season 2, episode 21, The Prime Mover. He plays a guy named Jimbo Cobb. He's a man who has telekinesis, and he's encouraged by a buddy to use his powers to cheat at dice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Walter Brennan, Grandpa Bauer. He has never played Thomas Edison, and it's a goddamn shame. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw this character. I went through his entire bio. He's done all the classic Westerns and everything, and he deserves all the kudos, but he has never once played Thomas Edison, and he looks exactly like him. It would have been a slam dunk.
Damn, that sucks.
And Bing Crosby was offered Walter Brennan's role, but Disney balked at his insistence on a percentage of the box office receipts.
Like, talk about dodging a bullet.
No
if you're Bing Crosby, talk about dodging a bullet, man. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, there's no money to give you, Bing. You know what's wild? You know what I just found? My speaking of my grandma again, the second show in a row, R.I.P. She was working when they came to Hollywood. She was working as the like a receptionist, I think, at the Warner Brothers lot. And it's like her and her 3 sisters were all like working there. And I have a picture of them with Bing Crosby out in like front of the studio or whatever.
Holy crap.
And she's like she had so many stories like that.
God, that's so cool.
But yeah, it's like this, just, you know, I don't know. It's weird. That's all.
It's just,
I just found it too. Like I would never have realized that.
That's just like old California. I can get off on a whole tirade. I won't, but that's just old California. That's California between like the 40s and like the 70s. It was just like, I was working at, a Burger King, and the entire dance troupe for, chorus line came in.
Yeah. Well, it's like Chunk and, in Goonies, where he's, what was it, that movie where he was like, yeah, the Swedish bikini team or something like that. I don't know, maybe not. I'm confusing my references. Anyway, go ahead, please. I've distracted you enough.
All right. So this one's for me. I'll try to explain who this character is. Richard Deacon, who plays Charles Wren, and he's the guy at the end of the movie. He's in the dance line. He has the glasses, and he's in a few arguments. It's hard for me to explain, but you can look him up. he was an actor who I've seen all over television. And the reason is because I have seen this guy like in everything. So it's funny to see him in this movie.
Was he in one of the clips that I played?
Yeah, and yes, he was.
Which one?
He was the main school guy. So when they were talking about school, he was leading the meeting. The guy with the glasses.
He played the school board president.
Yeah,
okay.
whatever they were calling him.
Okay.
And so the reason I brought this up is because I've seen this guy in like 10,000 things. He's like a famous around the horn one episode TV actor. He usually plays some stern jackass.
Okay.
And so I just thought it would be funny to mention him. He was in 23 episodes of Leave It to Beaver. He had like a standing character. He was in The Addams Family, The Munsters. He was the drive-in manager for the movie That Darn Cat, 1965. He was in 5 episodes of The Beverly Hillbillies. So I thought that was funny. He'd already worked with Buddy Ebsen. And of course, he was in 1 episode of The Twilight Zone, season 5, episode 33, The Brain Center at Whipple's.
Okay.
He plays Mr. Whipple, the heartless CEO who replaces 61,000 workers in his family-owned factory with a robot.
That sounds like that's like some place you would go to stop huffing paint. Is the Whipple, the brain center for Whipples or whatever.
That's where I'd go to start huffing paint.
Well,
go to the brain center, guys. I'm going to do some Whipples. But that's cool is Robbie the robot from Forbidden Planet is the robot that replaces all the workers. That same episode was directed by Richard Donner of Superman and Goonies fame.
Oh, see, there you go.
I'm going too deep. Okay. I wanted to meditate briefly on Ernie Stubbins.
Yes, let's do that.
We talked a lot about Ernie Stubbins, played by actor Steve Harmon, the hero we didn't know we needed, and a man far too good for that black-hearted harlot of the Dark Dakota Territory, Alice Bauer.
Agreed. Here.
Harmon had very few acting parts, despite his clear charm, which he had. That whole end bit, he was charming through the whole thing. He acted between 1964 and 1970. His most notable role is Ensign Frank Pulver in the TV series Mr. Roberts from 1965. Any old heads remember Mr. Roberts? He passed away on July 7, 2008 in Oahu, Hawaii. And the reason I bring it up is only because I really thought this guy was going to have a history. I thought that Steve Harmon was going to have a rap sheet a mile long, dancing in this and background in that. And he really had a short history. It sits poorly with me.
It's like, I mean, clearly he just didn't like it or whatever. I would like to know the story behind that for sure.
Yeah, because he had so much energy. I really loved watching him dance and do his whole bit. Okay, so this movie hinges a lot on Grover Cleveland and Benjamin Harrison. So obviously we got to do some Grover Cleveland facts. I will keep them quick. Grover Cleveland was the first democratically elected president after the Civil War. He was the only president to leave the White House and return for a second term 4 years later. Cleveland won the presidency with a combined support of the Democrats and the Reform Republicans called the Mugwumps, who disliked the record of his opponent, James G. Blaine of Maine. The Blaine of Maine.
The Blaine of Maine falls mainly on the Spain.
A bachelor, Cleveland was ill at ease at first with all the comforts of the White House. I must go to dinner, he wrote a friend, but I wish it was to eat a pickled herring and Swiss cheese and a chop at Louis instead of the French stuff I shall find.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I love that.
In June 1886, Cleveland married 21-year-old Frances Folsom. He was the only president to get married in the White House. So every other president, I believe, was married probably beforehand and after.
Yeah.
Cleveland vigorously pursued a policy barring special favors to any economic group, vetoing a bill to appropriate $10,000 to distribute seed grain among drought-stricken farmers in Texas. Okay. He wrote, federal aid in such cases encourages the expectation of paternal care on the part of the government and weakens the sturdiness of our national character.
God, it's just everything is the same. Nobody can ever have just a good life, even though we could definitely, for sure, afford it. Nobody can. Oh, I hate it.
Because people won't clean their rooms if we help them.
Yeah, because clearly our rooms are clean now.
Well, and he also vetoed.
I love vetoing.
I love vetoing all the time. He also vetoed many private pension bills to Civil War veterans whose claims were fraudulent. When Congress, pursued by the Grand Army of the Republic, passed a bill granting pensions for disabilities not caused by military service, Cleveland vetoed that too. He also signed the Interstate Commerce Act and the first law attempting federal regulations of the railroads. In December 1887, he called on the Congress to reduce high protective tariffs. Told that he had given Republicans an effective issue for the campaign in 1888, anyone ringing a bell? Right? He retorted, "What is the use of being elected or reelected unless you stand for something?" But Cleveland was defeated in 1888, although he won a larger popular majority than the Republicans. Candidate Benjamin Harrison. He received fewer electoral votes.
God bless, man. I love living in a democracy. And
that movie wasn't wrong.
Yeah, I think it's the best part. Yeah, I told Taryn about it, and she's like, did that happen? I'm like, I guess. I don't know. What am I, a historian? Come on now. I like looking stuff up, too, just while you're talking. I'm on the IMDb page and just pulling out a few facts, because especially Leslie Ann Warren, because, man, she had that. I keep going back to it, but the doe-eyed, lip-bitey, like, flirty thing, like, poof, get out of town. You wouldn't. So she's all over. A lot of these people do a lot of TV. And it's a lot of like 1 episode, 3 episode things. But what stuck out for me, 2 recent things. One, she was on the Daredevil TV series on Netflix, which was great for 1 episode, 2018. But she played the mom in the Aerosmith video, Janie's Got a Gun. She plays Janie's mom.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was pretty cool. Wally Cox, so he plays Mr. Wampler. And, you know, he's the barber, I believe, in town, where Carter goes like, "Whoa, Wampler, shut up," or whatever he says. And I saw his name on there. I was like, oh yeah, let's see what Mr. Wampler had ever done in his life. So Wally Cox has kind of done a lot of stuff too. A lot of, you know, onesie twosie kind of things here. He was in a bunch of episodes, or he was in 1 episode of The Odd Couple. He was a Macmillan and Wife, Night Gallery, Red Skeleton Hour. He was in The Magical World of Disney. So he's been doing a lot of stuff, but he was also in Rona Martin's Laugh-In, Bonanza, Lost in Space, Beverly Hillbillies. And because I like things when they bring other actors from different projects back together, you know? He was also in a 1964 episode of The Twilight Zone. He played
Season
someone
5,
called Jane.
Episode 20.
Season 5, Episode 20. There you go, From Agnes with Love. So there you go. There's your little, your Twilight Zone. Your Twilight Zone hit.
I need it.
Yeah.
If you're not watching The Twilight Zone, I don't know what you're doing with your life, folks.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. Okay. That's it, I guess, right? Are you done?
I got a couple more. You can cut this out later, but I got a couple more things if people want to hear it.
Okay, yeah, you do it. I'm sorry. I thought you were. Okay. I thought you were done, so that's why I jumped in.
No, because I wanted to do a bit about Benjamin Harrison because he became our president. He's not a loser.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, there you go.
He's the winner. Well, Grover Cleveland won again.
Yeah. I'm sorry, man. My bad.
Benjamin Harrison was our 23rd president of the United States from 1889 to 1893, elected after conducting one of the first front porch campaigns by delivering short speeches to delegations that visited him in Indianapolis. Nominated for president on the 8th ballot at the 1888 Republican Convention, Benjamin Harrison conducted one of the first front porch campaigns. So he would deliver these short speeches to delegations that would come visit him. And funny thing about him, I don't have much more except the fact that he was 5'6". And so
he's a short king. Damn.
Yeah, Democrats called him Little Ben.
Dude, That's ruthless.
I know. And then Republicans would reply with that saying, he's big enough to wear the hat of his grandfather, old Tippy Canoe.
What does that mean? That's clearly a reference. That's clearly a reference to something, man.
I didn't look it up because it's just, I thought that was funny enough where it sat.
Old Tippy Canoe.
Love that old Tippy Canoe.
Okay, so here it is.
Oh, here. Okay, good.
Tippy Canoe, it's one word. Tippe Canoe. Tippy Canoe and Tyler 2, originally published as Tip and Ty, was a popular and influential campaign song of the Whig Party's colorful log cabin campaign in the 1840 United States presidential election. Its lyrics sang the praises of Whig candidates William Henry Harrison, the hero of Tippy Canoe, and John Tyler, while denigrating incumbent Democrat Martin Van Buren. So it's one of those songs. It's like
former president.
Yeah, it's like saying someone is hot to go these days or something. I don't know. You don't know that reference, do you? Are you lost? You're lost.
My God, he could wear his hat though. Okay, so there's a funny bit in there that I had to look up just because of the way Buddy Ebsen says it. So they originally thought that they had lost the election. And Joe Carter says, well, this doesn't stop our fight for statehood. And then the gentleman in the glasses, Mr. Wren, he says, we've just begun to fight. And then Buddy Ebsen's character, Calvin, says, that has a nice ring to it somehow. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, this means something. This is something.
Yeah.
And so I looked up, we had just begun to fight. And originally it was something that had been said of a, I believe it was like an American captain during the fight with the English.
Okay.
Like the English had like,
Are you talking about
sinking his
the Revolutionary War?
Yeah, the Revolutionary War. So sure, that one.
The fight with the English.
The fight with those English guys. So
it wasn't the Civil War. It was the war between the states.
You know that one with the guys, they have the red coats,
yeah,
right?
For sure, man. Yeah.
Easy to shoot at.
Yeah.
But they were sinking his ship and they asked if you want to surrender. And he goes, I had yet begun to fight. But I didn't think that was the reference. For some I just because that had already happened.
Yeah.
And this is 1888.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I feel like it was a foreshadow. And so I looked it up and there was a speech given by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, October 31st, 1936, where the entire last half of the speech was, we've only just begun to fight. We've only just begun to fight this injustice. We've only just begun to fight, against the rebel rousers. We've only just begun. So it's like, I think that might have been a little nod to that speech of some sort.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
But it's like the one of the most famous times it had been used. The only other thing I wanted to mention, and I put in all these notes, but I don't think I'll ultimately talk about them. It's very long. But it is interesting that this movie is based off an actual family from South Dakota. There's a little snippet from the South Dakota State Historical Society that talks about the one and only genuine original family band with its all-star cast of Hollywood notables drew excited crowds when it opened in South Dakota in 1968 because it had a second premiere. We talked about the one from Radio City Music Hall.
Yeah.
But they actually gave it a second premiere specifically in South Dakota.
Sure.
So it had 2 movie premieres. And the entire story is taken from a book written by, I believe, the youngest Bauer family band from Missouri to the Black Hills, 1881 to 1900. And so she wrote it in 1961. And it was snapped up pretty much right after it was published by Walt Disney.
Okay.
And again, it basically is the general dry story of this family that moved from Missouri to the Dakotas. Interesting thing, though, Alice, who is in the band, never joined the band at all in real life. She continued to pursue journalism, which is what she wanted to do.
Okay.
And she began corresponding with a man named Joseph R. Gossage, who had established the Black Hills Journal. And so they wrote each other for a period of 16 months. And she had sent him a picture of her holding a present that he'd given her. It was like a little case.
Okay.
And he sent her a picture of himself.
A dick pic.
And he
it's the first dick pic ever delivered by Pony Express.
Funny enough, it's funny that they mention in the movie because it's actually a stash pic. So Joseph did have a mustache.
Okay.
Now in the movie they were making fun of that guy for she's grown a mustache.
Yeah.
Joseph actually did have a mustache, and Alice loved that goddamn mustache.
Okay.
And she wrote him so.
Oh man.
She said she adored his mustache. And when they finally met after 16 months and they were wed June 1882. And then they moved back to the Black Hills. And then eventually Calvin and the rest of the family moved to the Dakotas because everyone they knew had left and there was no family members around. So it's kind of like they were like pulled to move there to be with the rest of the family.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, they started the band. They already had the band, but they became very famous there, became local, historical legends and everything.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah. And so,
that's wild.
Yeah, that's a real family band. So if you go to South Dakota, boy, they're going to tell you about them.
Yeah, I bet they will, man. Well,
Yeah.
good job, Matt. I appreciate that. All right. Well, we are going to get out of here. Matt, thank you very much once more for sitting through these movies. Do you remember what movie's coming up next in case people want to listen or watch the movie?
Oh, yeah, because
what is it?
It is our Halloween episode.
Yeah,
so we are going to do Watcher in the Woods.
Watcher in the Woods. Okay. This is one I'm unfamiliar with, but hopefully it's going to be great because I love a Halloween movie. It's, my month of Halloween shirts that I get to wear. And
me too.
I'm
I have
excited
a whole
about it,
slate of Halloween shirts.
Hell yeah, man. I'm excited about it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, this is a 1980s film. So this is going to be interesting. So this is much later. This isn't the wackadoo 60s. This is going to be your muted color palette 80s.
Hell yeah, dude. I can't wait for it.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody who has been downloading the show, which I imagine if you're listening to this and you're hearing my thanks, that means you. I'm talking to you specifically. It's really been great to kind of see everybody come together under these movies and give us some nice, good feedback. And I really do appreciate it. If you want to support this show, we do have a Patreon just for the network in general. You can go to patreon.com/earsup. That's EARZUP, and you can join for as little as $2 a month if you want. But at $5, we do a secret show, which is just like our main show, which is the Ears Up, like main podcast or whatever. But we do a lot of Disney news, and we swear a little bit, and we have a drink recipe. So if you're into cocktails and stuff like that, you can go ahead and follow along. You get a free drink. Well, it's not free. You're paying $5, but you get a drink recipe, and that $5 goes to not only paying for that show, but it helps keep the network up and running because we have so many other shows. We have a Star Wars show, we have a Marvel show, we have a park specific show, we have a whole bunch of different shows. So please hit us up over there. And if you want to listen to us live, you can catch us do these shows. I kind of like doing them on Twitch. I think it's fun. I don't post the video on our YouTube channel, which is of course YouTube.com/earsup or whatever it is. But if you want to check that out, you can go follow us on Twitch at Ears Up, and then you can get the notification that we're going live, and then you can just sit and kind of watch how we put this show together. And it's unlike the other shows we do where there's a lot of editing involved and stuff like that. So, it's watching it behind the scenes is a little bit of freewheeling, and it's fun. You can join the chat and, have a good time. And for everything else, we have a website, earsup-podcast.com, and links to our merchandise and all that kind of stuff. So, thank you guys for listening to the show. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you for the spooky Halloween episode, Matt.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you guys want to check me out, it's Shelter from Oblivion. I have my own podcast with my friend Andy, and we're on shelter.from.oblivion on Instagram. And we also have a Facebook page. That's kind of where we're living right now. We're not incredibly savvy, so we don't have our own website yet. I'm working that out.
Oh yeah, dude.
And one thing I will say is if you do come over there, up until October 10th, we're trying to collect Halloween stories, like personal Halloween stories. So if you were a kid in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and you were running around on Halloween night, I just want to collect a series of stories about things that happened, like, cool candy that you got, or like a house that went way over the top with decorations, like local legends, about stuff that's going on. And we're putting together a show called Tales from the Candy Bowl, where I'm going to talk about some stuff that I did, on Halloween, like kind of just a remembrance story, like that sort of memory unlocked thing.
That's cool. That's a good idea.
So yeah, if you guys want to DM me over on Instagram, or you send an email, I actually have a video up where it goes through the whole thing of what I'm looking for and how you can get a hold of me.
Cool. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds great. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And, until next time, I'll see you later.
Well, he don't look like he's got sense enough to pound sand in the rat hole.